20. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:04. Can we have a roll call, please?
We can. Mr. Allred,
Here?
Mr. Andreessen, Mr. Fell, Mr. Hopkins. Oh, there we go. Ms. McFarland,
Present.
Mr. Rose,
Here.
Ms. Sims,
Here.
and Ms. Yu.
Here.
All right, it looks like we have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There will be in a second, but before we get started with that, I would like to introduce our newest member, Bill Rose. Bill, I don't know if you want to say a few words or anything.
I'm happy to serve, and I look forward to my tenure here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so yes, we do have some changes to the agenda. So since the new business, which is the Hope Village subdivision plat, since the PUD case is contingent upon that subdivision being done first, we would like to move that up ahead of the new public hearings. Also, since there might be folks in the audience who might want to speak about the subdivision plat, we'd like to move public input to before both those. So it would go, if you're going down, it would go after unfinished business. We'd like to put public input. Then we would like to put new business, which is the subdivision, which is the preliminary and final plat cases. And then after that, it would be the new public hearings. Are you all following?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So for everybody in the crowd, if you want to speak about the planned unit development case, you will have the time to do that during that public hearing. And if you want to speak about the subdivision plat or anything else germane to the Plan Commission, you will be able to do that during the public input section, and we will make that known when the time is right.
Yeah, we'll review that when we get there.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Approval of minutes from remind me what meeting was. That was, because I wasn't here for that one.
September 7th.
Oh, the September 7th meeting. Are there any motions or comments on the minutes from that last meeting?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Fell. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. McFarland. So we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Continued public hearings, we have none. Unfinished business, we have none, which brings us, with our change of the agenda, to our public input, audience participation. So this will be your opportunity for anyone in the audience who wishes to address the Plan Commission for 5 minutes, uninterrupted, on a topic of your choice, or in particular on the subdivision case tonight. If you have comments for the plan case related to the PUD, the planned unit development, we'd ask that you save that for the public input portion related to that case. So if anyone wishes.
Okay, thank you. So there's a request to speak louder.
Okay, sure.
Okay, thanks.
Apologies for that. So is there anyone that wishes to address the Plan Commission about any topic that they would like, or about the subdivision case in particular? You could come, if you could please come forward and.
I'm trying to catch up with all this moved up stuff, but how can we have somebody speak to something that they haven't heard anything about yet? I know it's not a public hearing, but I'm assuming staff is going to present something on this topic. And if they're being asked to talk about this,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I'm not prepared to listen to them.
Yeah.
So the reason for moving the public comment was as a courtesy. The planned unit development case is a public hearing that takes testimony, so there's a spot for public input. The subdivision is business that is not a public hearing. There's not a function for public input. So it is not a hearing. So what's heard is not directly evidence, will not be evidence, if you will, for the approval. It's really just business conducted in public. But we have moved the public input because that gives someone an opportunity, if they have something in general that they would like to have heard before we get to the cases, this is an opportunity, whereas normally it would be after everything's all said and voted on. So that's the difference, is that it's not, the subdivision is not a public hearing.
After the subdivision. I didn't keep track of what they're.
No, I don't think so, right?
No, like Kim said, it's just sort of a courtesy so that people can voice their opinion on the subdivision.
Did this the last meeting, and I think it's out of the minutes. I. Yes, I'm sorry. Anyway, maybe I'm not making any sense.
So we're trying to sort out a procedural issue around when it might make most sense for public comment. Because public comment at this point, as it's aligned, is, I'm gonna let you guys explain the process, but is before we get sort of staff input. And so you would be responding before we've had a formal presentation. So he's just asking if there's a way to make your public comment more connected to the feedback that we're getting from the staff report. Because right now, there's public input that happens preceding that as a part of the process, because procedurally, what we're gonna vote on doesn't really require public input. I don't know if that made sense to everybody.
Yeah, but just to be clear, that's for the subdivision plat only, which is basically a technical process, but you all will get a chance to speak about the planned unit development itself during the planned unit development case. I know it's confusing, but you will get to speak about the planned unit development.
And this is about the subdivision plot, right?
Correct.
Correct. Yeah, there's two main items of business tonight. The first is to address the subdivision of the single parcel, and then once that is approved, assumingly, then to address the PUD.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Can you, sorry,
Come up
sir,
to
can
the
you come up to the
microphone.
mic? Thanks.
I want to understand what's going on. For one, you guys didn't actually explain this. This is the blueprint, right?
We'll get to that. We're kind of jumping ahead, but
Something
we'll
good?
get to that.
Can you hear me good?
Yes.
All right, sounds good. All right,
If you have a question about the blueprint that you're looking
I want
at,
to make sure that I'm understanding you clearly when you say that there's no public hearing on what you've already decided on, right?
no, that we haven't made a
yet.
decision yet.
Right. So basically, the questions and answers and things that we have that we want to talk about, maybe some things that we want to change. Is that going to make a difference today?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So, for instance, and I'm just talking hypothetically, right?
Sir, could you sign in to the sign-in sheet so that we can identify you in the minutes?
Sure.
It's
Let him
right
sign
behind
in.
you. We want to give you credit.
Yeah, I think this is counting as public input at this point, right? I did, yeah. Yeah, so this is public input. In addition to yourself, if anyone wants to address the commission, you can come forward, sign in, state your name, and you have 5 minutes to address the commission.
My name is Marcus Johnson.
Welcome.
Welcome. So I guess, like I said, my question is that because there's already been trucks and things already making plans for this whole village here, again, if it's something that we choose that we want alterations or we don't want or things of that sort, is that going to make a difference today?
I'm sorry, we're trying to work on a procedural issue. Yes, you will have a chance to speak during the planned unit development case when that comes up.
So today is a public hearing for that?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Step back and, okay. All right, let's keep going.
Sorry, was there a question that I missed in there? Okay. Okay, so is there anyone else that would like to address the commission as part of the public input on any topic of your choice, in addition to the subdivision case tonight? Again, for the PUD case, we'll hold those comments until we have a presentation about that case. Yes, you can talk now. Yeah, if you come forward to the mic and sign in and state your name. But if your comments are about the planned unit development case, the PUD, we'd ask that you wait and give those comments after the presentation about that case.
Good point.
If we can talk now, and then you wanna wait, if we're gonna.
Actually, it's the reverse. So it's G. G is the subdivision. So we're going to have a discussion and a presentation and a vote on the first step in this process, which is whether or not to subdivide that parcel into 2 parcels. We need to decide about that before we can decide about the planned unit development, which is the actual description of the development that's proposed for the southern parcel that will be part of that once it's subdivided.
So the subdivision, subdivided is number,
Yes, correct.
cause I have never.
I,
But then they saying it's the final? Right, sir?
The subdivision,
Yeah, the subdividing, so I don't wanna get mixed up with, so that's,
right.
but subdividing, this thing, yeah, is being subdivided now, is that what you're saying?
The larger, right now, the location where this development is proposed to happen is a larger site, right? That larger site has to first be subdivided into 2 sites, 2 smaller parcels. And then one of those smaller parcels will be the location of the planned unit development.
One of those would be F.
Correct.
can I make a suggestion?
I don't like it, but I used to be elected official too.
We have to listen to you, yes? Yes.
Did we know about subdivision, sir?
Yes, it,
We've been at the meeting, you saw me.
mhm.
Did we know about the subdivision?
Well, we sent notice out within the last month. to everybody, yeah, sorry. Can you ask your questions at the microphone, please?
Okay, so it's, can you hear y'all getting the notices? So notices were sent out to whom? To, was the core group or to whom, Elders call y'all? Because I've been on line listening, but I couldn't come because I'm mostly in a wheelchair. So what's the problem? Sir?
Well, during public input, it's not a Q&A session, so.
No, I'm not asking questions, but I'm
Okay.
just, I mean, yes, I am asking questions for clarification. You know, for clarification, because if we don't understand what's going on, then I can't act intelligently. You see what I'm saying? So, you know I've been to all the meetings, and then they know that I've been online listening because, so I'm saying, I didn't know, I'm just gonna speak about me. I did not know that there was subdividing going on. But you sent it out to the people, there was a core group. Who did you send the notices out to, Mr. Kevin?
So we have notification requirements in our zoning ordinance, and we are required to send notification to all property owners within 250 feet of a property. So it was a small group. That's our requirement for every case that we have.
Okay, so that was sent out to 250 people. No, people within the 250 feet. How many of those people was did? And you said sin. Did they put it like they were told us at the meeting? I mean, you send it means send it by mail, U.S. mail. Okay, it was sent to U.S. mail to the people within 250 feet of the plat or subdivision. I don't know how to call it. Am I on the right track, though? Thank you. So the letter went out to, now I know these people, there's some people here who live there. You live right in the backyard. Did you get a letter? No, I did not. And you didn't get a letter? And if you didn't get a letter, these are the
Okay,
people that live.
I'm going to make a suggestion.
Yes, sir.
Because it seems like there's
We don't
not a lot
under-
of information about the subdivision right now. So what I'm going to propose is that
Yeah.
we make another change to the agenda and do the presentation about the subdivision case first, and then we'll take some public input after that, and then we'll move on to the PUD case after that. So you'll have a chance to get some information about what this subdivision is about.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
But I think we should take a vote about the change to the agenda. I don't know what the procedural process for that should be, if we need a motion. Can someone make a motion about?
So we changed the agenda once without, I'm going to change from the.
We're trying to make it more official this time.
What's the change in the?
Yeah, the change in the agenda would be that we would have a presentation on plan case number 2479S23, which is the plan case about the subdivision. Then we'll take public input as part of the public hearing.
No, we will take public input, not as part of the public hearing.
Yeah, take public input after that case.
Yes, but it is not a public hearing.
Correct.
Okay, just correcting, because you said public
I meant,
hearing.
yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
So to clarify, it would be new business, public input, new public hearings.
Correct.
Okay.
so moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So, Kevin, thank you.
We can see it.
Not on those? Okay. UPTV operator, can you help us get this laptop on the screens?
Well, three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, greetings, good evening. Okay, all right, so this is a request by Marty Smith on behalf of the Carl Foundation for approval of preliminary and final plats for the Hope Village subdivision. Just as a refresher, this on your screen is a location map showing where this subdivision is located. So it's kind of on the northwest side of Urbana. It's right along the border with Champaign. So the areas that are a little lighter gray, that's Champaign, and then the darker gray, and the red is in Urbana. Just sort of an overall on how all this stuff fits together. So the Hope Village timeline is essentially right before you on your screen. So it's the preliminary planned unit development, which was approved back on July 31st by City Council. And then now that we're in fall, they are currently building the community center plus one model home. And then they have applied for the preliminary and final subdivision plat and also the final planned unit development. And then if all of that is approved, then Hope Village would be built out in starting next year. Okay, so this property has never been officially subdivided. It's always been farmland. And the request is to, as you can see on your screen, I can zoom in a little bit. So it's essentially to take the big parcel and split it into two. So lot 101 and lot 102. And then lot 101 would be the lot that is subject to the planned unit development that we will address later in this meeting. So just as a refresher, preliminary plats are required to show locations of public utilities, paved roads and sidewalks, topographic lines, and other details so that a subdivision can be established. You'll note this does not, this preliminary plat doesn't include many of those things I just said because there are no public streets, there's no public sidewalks here. This is gonna all be a private development. But this preliminary plat includes all of the required, or all of the requirements for a preliminary plat. We sent out, as we do, a 10-day review period to external agencies like utility companies and so forth. And then all the comments that were received and then conveyed back to the project engineers have been addressed in what is now before you. This is a slightly revised plat. Most of the comments were minor. I think the only sort of major, but not really that major piece was there's a little easement up here that Ameren wanted for some future utility poles up in the northeast corner of the site. But otherwise, this is essentially the same plat that went out with the packets. There's in the staff memo, there's a detailed discussion. I'm not going to hit all of that. You're welcome to read through, ask questions about any of that. But I do want to sort of hit some of the highlights. So if you're following along at home, I'm on page 2 of the staff memo. With respect to the subdivision layout and access, so this is an 11.7 acre tract. As I said, it would be subdivided into 2 lots. The southern lot, which again would be subject to the PUD case later, is about 7.9 acres. The northern one is about 3.9 acres. And then so right now they're taking, for the construction traffic, all of that's coming off of Federal Drive. But once, if and when Hope Village were built, the access would come off of this southwestern corner off of Carver Drive, where right now it just dead ends into the farm field. So this proposed subdivision did not require a traffic impact analysis. The rule that we use for that is essentially if a subdivision is expected to generate 100 car trips or more during the peak hour of the day, then we would require a traffic impact analysis. With just 30 homes on this site and a handful of staff working at Hope Village, that was far under that threshold for requiring a traffic impact analysis. With respect to drainage, let's see. I can address this a little. I'll talk a little bit more about this when we talk about the subdivision, or sorry, the PUD cases. But drainage essentially will all flow to the north. You'll note there's this detention pond in the southwest. Essentially, there would be inlets, or essentially everything would flow into that detention basin. And then, if you'll note here on the left side, there's this storm sewer sort of going up and to the north, and then all that goes and all the way up here, and then goes further north. So all that is to say is that no drainage would be going south through the existing neighborhood. Sidewalks, there aren't any sidewalks required because, as I said, this is all going to be a private development, but they are going to do a private sidewalk from the sidewalk on the west side of Carver Drive, and that would go up and connect to the community center. Utilities, there are utilities available adjacent to the site, so they'll connect to those. And then again, street trees are not required since there's no public streets, no street trees required. But as you'll see in the landscape plan a little later on, they are planning to install plenty of trees as well. Really, that kind of wraps up my presentation. You have the following options in these cases. So you can approve the preliminary plat because that stops at Plan Commission, and then I said options. Here's our recommendation. Our recommendation is that you approve the preliminary plat, and then you recommend approval of the final plat to City Council. And I can take any questions.
Thanks, Ms. Garcia. Do we have any questions for staff? Mr. Rose.
Yes. One items for discussion later is access. Is there anything in this platting decision that closes off or keeps open access possibilities from Federal Drive?
I don't see anything that would preclude access off of Federal Drive.
Well, that easement sits right in the alignment of Federal Drive, doesn't it?
It does, and yeah, let me take a look at that. I think, yeah, let me see. Yeah, it does, and I'm not sure, maybe if the project engineer is here, I'm not sure if they are. Chad, could you come up here and sort of describe that easement?
Yeah. Hi, Chad Osterber with Fairgram Engineering, civil engineer. That easement is just for Ameren to get service to the site. I mean, we can build pavement over that, so that wouldn't stop that, but right now that's where we're planning to run it. You know, theoretically, if Federal Drive was ever extended, you know, we may have to relocate some utilities, but, you know, you're talking about right-of-way, addition of right-of-way at that point in time. But we don't currently have any intent to extend Federal Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hopkins?
So a couple of minor questions. So we got two outlots that are in Urbana without access. Can somebody explain that to me?
I was the planner that processed that case several years ago, and I, for the life of me, cannot remember off the top of my head how all that worked. It was very odd.
Well,
Because, yeah, you're talking these lots right here.
I'm talking two little square lots in the jog on the south side.
Yeah, these two right here.
Outlots, and they are in the city of Urbana, then we got a problem with this subdivision,
Kevin,
Well,
because they have no access.
those outlots are owned by the property owners directly to the west.
So those,
So it's a long, deep lot split by the corporate
okay,
limit.
and so
Yeah,
the
and-
only reason that it's designated an outlot is because the backyard is in Urbana and the front yard is in Champaign.
correct.
Correct.
Lovely.
Yes.
And they're
And
not,
that's-
I'd love to see the taxes on those two parcels. That's why they're outlots.
Well, and that's that's
Okay,
why
they-
they're
They know, okay, but that answers my question.
okay. All right, thanks.
Now, it seems to me, at some point we have discussion. This is questions, right? I'm going to make that distinction. So questions. Why is this subdivision necessary for the PUD?
I think it's necessary just so they establish the lot lines for the boundary of the PUD. I can't recall exactly why it wouldn't work as the full lot, but it's certainly cleaner to subdivide.
Okay, but subdivision precludes modifications, additions, changes, multiple access, et cetera. So it seems to me that this is actually a decision about the PUD's potential configuration. And if it's unnecessary, I'd like to know that.
Was that a question for me?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, yeah, so I suppose the subdivision is done so that they have established the lot lines for the PUD, and then they go from there.
Lou, is your mic on?
Sorry. So we could approve, disapprove, modify the PUD proposal as a site plan without having to have a subdivided lot as the definitions of any aspect of that site plan.
Well, I will say what is before you is a proposal from an applicant for this subdivision. So I think you need to take it on its merits as a subdivision. And
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Did we want to have the applicant address the commission about this particular case, or not necessarily?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I do have a question for the applicant, if that's appropriate. Namely the rationale, the reason why the applicant seeks this, this plat in two.
I'm not sure if that's germane to the task at hand. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
there more info coming, or should we move on to the public input?
Well, Marcus, do you want to explain? Do you need your phone back?
So the first answer is that it's reasonable for the, yes, for the parcel to match up with the proposed development. Then if they want to do development north of it, it's already subdivided. The zoning ordinance requires, it defines a planned unit development as a large integrated development adhering to a detailed site plan and located on a contiguous tract of land that may include a mixture of blah, 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 blah. So staff's interpretation of a contiguous tract of land means if you say that the PUD is going to be 7.895 acres, then it has to be on a parcel matching those boundaries of 7.895 acres. So that's why we shifted the subdivision item before the PUD so that a vote could be taken on creating the parcel so that the PUD would apply to that same bounded parcel. If they wanted to make an 11.9 acre PUD, they could have done that without a subdivision. Does that make sense? Or is that clear if it not making sense?
Well, it's an explanation. We'll leave it at that. Okay, last chance. Any more questions for staff? Okay, so at this point, as we discussed earlier, there's not a requirement for public input, but we'd like to offer the opportunity for public input. So if you would like to address the commission about this case, you can come forward and state your name and sign in. But just as a reminder, we will have another presentation about the PUD and another opportunity for public input about that.
Okay. My name is Audra Owens, and I am going to read a statement composed by Sharice Hersey, Alderman of Ward 3. She also would like to distribute these minutes. Okay, if you hear any pronouns, I, me, whatever, I'm speaking for Ms. Hersey. Okay, members of the Planning Commission, I am writing this memo to you today to ask the City of Urbana to reject the final plat plans for the building of Hope Village. Being a city alderman, I have had knowledge of this project since its inception and presentation from Carl, University of Illinois, and Champaign County health consumers. I was against the project early on, not because of the population they say they want to serve. Let me reiterate that, not because of the population that they say they want to serve, but because such fragile population is due better conditions. There are no amenities that far north that would or could benefit such a fragile community. The lead agency, which is Carl, would have known this if they had ever did any community outreach. On February 24th, 2023, Marty Smith, Claudia Linhoff, Carol Mitten, and Ms. Hersey met at the Silver Creek Restaurant and discussed their plan. At that time, she asked again where they planned to build the community. Actually, she already knew due to the history, but she wanted to hear them say it and not bypass or deflect like they have done when asked that question during council meetings. They confirmed that it would be built in Ward 3 on the parcel that had been rezoned for a previous PUD that fell through in 2019. She stated her reasons why she thought it was a bad idea: the lack of essential services in the area, no banking services, no grocery store or pharmacy. However, there are services such as a funeral home, a Circle K, and a food bank somewhat nearby. She doesn't even think they were aware of Carver Park at the time, or they were keeping it close to the vest. At no time that she can recall was Carver Park discussed. She was honest and told them that she felt that she had to represent her community, and she knew that they would not care for the community being built there, mostly for the same reasons she stated. She suggested that they meet with the different pastors and their congregations to plead their case. The reports that she got from those that attended the community meeting and was what she expected. Many complained of the vague answers. Well, we're not sure. We're working on that. We can't give you that information, which I just witnessed when that gentleman over there was sitting there and he did not have answers, knowing he was coming to this and he was going to inform us of what was happening. Given that when they were asked pointed questions, this has been the modus operandi of all the agencies involved. It is Ms. Hersey's opinion, and probably the opinion of a lot of people here, that gaining access to Hope Village through Carver Park in Champaign was a card hidden up the sleeve. They have lied about many things in the hope of gaining support, and they have moved forward with their plan, which they have a right to do. However, they have also guaranteed the surrounding community will not be having potlucks or softball games or embracing Hope Village as they see it. Many in the community, including Ms. Hersey, feels that it is being forced upon Carver Park, the community directly south of the proposed site, because no one bothered to talk to the residents of that subdivision. And which was mentioned earlier, that letters were sent out, at least 250 of them, and if some folks are here who live in that area and did not receive those letters, then I have to assume that not 250 went out. Nor did anyone bother to talk to the city of Champaign. This community has been completely dismissed regarding the entrance point to Hope Village. The city of Urbana and their representatives has also been dismissive of the encroachment of this development through the Carver Park subdivision. There has been no effort to appease the residents of Carver Park either. If anything, the principal agency, Carl, doubled down on its plan to blow through Carver Park via Carver Drive. Ms. Hersey is requesting and suggesting that the developers not pick a fight with the residents of Carver Park and plan your entrance point on Federal Drive in Urbana. The planning application gives an address of 1799 Federal Drive. This project receives ARPA funds from the city of Urbana. The project can, in fact, be accessed from the correct address. It is the entry point right now for the construction equipment. Carver Drive might be more convenient, but it is not, let me stress this again, but it is not the address. I have observed, or Ms. Hersey has observed, the encroachment of Carl and University of Illinois in her ward for many, underscore, many years. This development is just one more. There is no value added to her community by building yet another tax-exempt property on, on the north end of town. The project that will benefit from the services of the cities of Urbana and Champaign, police and fire departments, public works, as they also are suing Urbana for funds of which they feel entitled. Allowing entrance through Carver Drive will be only to the benefit of Carl et al., while virtually exsanguinating or cutting the north end of tax dollars needed to provide the services that will avail Hope Village. This neglect of Ward 3 must stop. What I am suggesting is an easy fix. They can continue to build their buildings according to plan. However, access to and from this project should come from the north. It is Ms. Hersey's hope that the city will stand with its tax-paying residents and do the right thing. Dismissing Carver Park by simply saying it's in Champaign is disrespectful and condescending to our community. As an elected African-American representative, it is insulting and hurtful. Resolution 2021-02-005R plainly states, Section 2, the City of Urbana recognizes that it will take additional effort to align our actions with our aspirations. The subversiveness of white privilege includes the double standard of responsibilities when there are unequal rights and inequitable opportunities. The city resolves to recognize and value diversity in its policies, personnel, and investment. The city will seek to ensure that there is harmony between equal and fair process and equitable results. In the pursuit of equity, however, it is feasible and just. The city shall use all methods and methodologies at our disposal through our department, city council, boards, and commissions. The city shall resolve to constantly challenge ourselves and to be a leader in creating a government, community, society, and economy unshackled by the past, unleashing progress and prosperity to their full potential for all of our residents and business owners so that we may continue moving forward to form a more perfect union here in the city of Urbana. The method lies in the hands of the Planning Commission right now. The effort should be made. Final plat should not move forward until the entrance change is made and resolved. Thank you for your time, and everyone here prays that you heard her words.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the commission?
My name is Robert Lewis, former council member for Ward 3. I've been working with the city of Champaign and the city of Urbana for a long time, especially on this project. Unfortunately, Mrs. Hersey was absolutely correct. There's not a whole lot I can add to that. My background is engineering. And as I reviewed the plans, I could see a lot of her analogies that she made, and the fact that I can support what she's talking about. I even tried to do a plan and flipped it for her so we could come into Federal Drive. You can do that. It's not a stretch. But there's significant elements within the concept of this plan. When she said, you dismissed them, they absolutely did. The detention basin, which is just located off of Carver Drive on this plan, is 14 feet deep. According to international code, it can't be fenced in, okay? You can't do that. And the EPA won't allow it either. So what are these young children going to do with that? They got to get a fishing pole and a boat, go out and try to swim or whatever. Something's going to happen here, and it's going to be a tragedy for the people of Carver Drive. One of the ladies came to the one of the proposal meetings, a dog and pony show about Hope Village, and she asked the question about emergency services. The goalposts have been changing on this project. since I saw it in the beginning. And when you look at people that are trying to raise a family, they're trying to keep their children asleep at night, and they've got emergencies coming in and out. This is one way in and one way out. Emergency vehicles were going to be there. Initially, they talked about people that would needed special services. Okay, cancer patients, indigent people. If you look at the plan, I wouldn't do it that way. If it's a fence all the way around, I can't call it a Hope Village. It's an institution. One way in, one way out, just like a prison. And that's an insult to the African American community when you do it that way. I could go on in details. I could get on point by point by point, but it's irrelevant at this point. Mrs. Hersey was absolutely correct. She voted no from the very beginning because of the presumptuousness of the entities involved. And you need to take that into account. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Mr. Chair,
comments.
I'd like to point a point of order, I guess. The item before you is a minor development of lots that meet all development regulations of the zoning ordinance and the land development code. It isn't really open to public input. At this time, it would be appropriate for discussion by the Plan Commission and a vote, and then move on to the planned unit development case, which the majority of these comments are actually about. The lots meet the size and configuration that is required by the city of Urbana. Regardless of how you do end up voting, it is a public meeting, not a public hearing. Just
Sure,
my opinion.
thanks. I think we understand that, but we just want to make sure that we're giving opportunity and giving people a chance to be heard. Okay. Are we ready for discussion? Is anyone, any discussion on the proposal?
I have a little bit. I think this might actually relate back more to a staff question again, but normally when we get a case like this, we're not going to see a proposed detention basin or a very convoluted proposed electrical easement, because this is subdivision of land, not a, I mean, we don't know how big the detention basin is till we know what our impervious material is. So why are easements included for things that aren't normally on a plat like this?
Which easements are you talking about?
Well, there's the one I have in front of me is a proposed electrical easement centered on the proposed electrical that snakes a path through the middle of the site. And there's nothing on the site yet, so
Yes, there is.
Well, we require easements to be shown on plats, so if they're proposing to add an easement to this site, then that makes sense that it's there.
okay, I can understand that, but we also, let's say, for instance, that we approve the subdivision case, and we don't approve the PUD, and they have to modify the PUD in some way. They cannot. We just took that away from. We took part of that away from them. So to me, approving this, at least this specific of a easement for electrical distribution isn't appropriate for the plat, because we don't know what's going to go on it yet.
So we could make that as a condition that it gets removed. Yeah. Mr. Hopkins?
I am, at this point, unless I hear something different, going to oppose approval of this because it is premature to create this subdivision without having addressed the significant concerns about the PUD, in particular access, and it then applies to most of the easements and infrastructure which is aligned with this subdivision into two parcels, and which may not be appropriate in a modified PUD. And I see no reason, I understand the simplicity of defining the subdivision first, but that's contingent on the PUD being correct, which we haven't approved yet. And I think we could do this in the opposite order if we needed to, but I would at this point oppose approving the preliminary plat.
Any other discussion from the commission? Mr. Rose?
Hate to bring this up, but the original agenda had items in the order that would have been satisfactory to Mr. Hopkins.
Ms. Sims?
I'm just going to ask for clarification so that I'm following. And so, as I understand it, you're recommending that you feel voting on the division of the PUD, right? Like how the land is configured before thinking about the plan is sort of like cart before horse. And so that we need to listen to what the plan for the land use, right? Like, and how it is going to be configured and how people are going to access it first before thinking about how it's divided. Did I simplify that too much?
Another way of putting it is we can argue about the potential access from Federal Drive. Approving this preliminary plat prevents that.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, we've moved into the portion of the meeting where we discuss this amongst the commission. Can you, Mr. Garcia or Mr. Ricci, can you go over again the criteria that we should be using to evaluate whether or not this is approved or disapproved? So what is it that we are looking for in the review of a preliminary and final plat? And could you clarify, I think you mentioned, Mr. Ricci, that it was a minor subdivision, but...
That was my mistake. It's
Okay.
a major
Yeah,
development.
that's what I thought.
Due to the existing infrastructure on the site.
The lack of existing infrastructure. Right, correct.
Correct. There is, if you look down the property line, there is a proposed 10-inch public sanitary sewer. So that is a private line that is proposed to be run through public sanitary sewer, meaning not private septic systems. The presence of that large piece of infrastructure elevated it from a minor development to a major development.
Sorry, we're gonna pull up the manual of practice, because all that content is in there.
Okay, thank you.
While we're doing that, I know there were a couple of letters that I had handed out to all of you, and I wonder if we should read those into the record as well. I'd be happy to do it. I don't have copies myself, so if somebody wants to pass them down here. I know one was from Eldris Carr and one was from Father James Ellison. Okay, this first one, excuse me, is from Father James Ellison of the St. Nicholas Antiochian Orthodox Church, which is at 1807 North Federal Drive, so it's just north of the parcel here. All right, Father Ellison said to the Planning Commission and Urbana City Council, we at St. Nicholas Antiochian Orthodox Church, located just to the north of the planned housing development, are hopeful for a great relationship with the residents and staff of this new and much-needed housing complex. The Carl staff, particularly Mr. Marty Smith, have shown us gracious consideration and indicated their desire to be good neighbors as they develop the property. We make a request of the City of Urbana and the developers that at completion of the project or before, as may be best, the construction access along Federal Drive between Kenyon and the construction site be repaired or repaved. The heavy truck traffic is understandably damaging the street. Thank you for your consideration. On behalf of the Parish Council, Father James Ellison. I did ask our engineering folks to go out and just take and assess how the pavement is there now, and then we'll reassess it after construction to see if there has been any damage, and we'll figure out how to address that. And let me read the second letter. Okay, this one's a little, excuse me, this one's a little bit longer. This is from, let's see, Eldris Melinda Carr sent this to us. It's also signed at the end, or it says, for further information, contact Jacqueline Curry, Darlene Bailey, Marianne Harrington, and Joseph Wilson. And those are all representatives of, respectively, Carver Park Subdivision, Dr. Ellis Subdivision, Crispus Attucks Subdivision, and MLK Subdivision. Okay. This is to Urbana Plan Commission, City Council of City of Urbana and Champaign, Carl Foundation, U of I, and Champaign County Healthcare Consumers. The subject is updated letter for Hope Village Planned Unit Development adjoining Carver Park Subdivision. Residents and citizens' concerns. The purpose of this updated letter is to make known our position in the form of concerns and proposals on behalf of the residents of Carver Park, Crispus Attucks, Dr. Ellis, Martin Luther King subdivisions, and others in the surrounding community who are in opposition to the location of Hope Village. Although the construction of Phase 1 of this development is underway, it is our fervent desire that it be stopped and not enter the final phase for reasons outlined in the following information. In the near future, we will be presenting to the Urbana City Clerk and the City of Urbana Council a petition with 40% of the owner lots within the defined area as required for a valid written protest in the zoning ordinance of the City of Urbana. and additional, and additional supporting content. This supporting content is in follow-up to Exhibit L, the Carver Park Neighborhood Association letter dated October 5th, 2023, page 21 of the staff report from Kevin Garcia, Principal Planner to the Urbana Plan Commission, and is posted on the city website at the URL for the Plan Commission meeting. The posted letter was initially shared at the community forum on October 5th, 2023 by Eldris Melinda Carr, who gave printed copies to Simon Rowell, Marty Smith of Carl Foundation, Claudia Lenhoff of Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, and Dr. Ashlyn Stillwell of the U of I. Debbie Roberts, president of the Carver Park Association, also shared this letter with City of Champaign Council and City of Urbana Council and mayors by email on October 6th. Today's updated letter is being shared with the Plan Commission in advance of the November 9th, 2023 public hearing. Main concerns: access through Carver Park, lack of attention to Carver Park infrastructure, public health, safety, and well-being, no environmental impact assessment with neighboring residents or the community, open transparency with community engagement, specific programs and medical services to be used at this facility, what is the value added to the community, proper notification process for all changes made in the future. All right, access through Carver Park. Without conceding our position, we strongly propose that access be made to and from Federal Drive with no traffic coming through Carver Park subdivision. You will have the produce mobile unit and Carl Clinic, health bus, foot traffic, regular vehicles of staff, visitors, and residents, sanitary haulers, emergency vehicles, and delivery vehicles. Historically, congestion is stated as one of the reasons why the former Francis Nelson Health Center was relocated and renamed. Lack of attention to Carver Park infrastructure. Where is the City of Champaign and City of Urbana on the correction of drainage, sanitary, and flooding issues? What will it take to repair Carver Park underground infrastructure? Health and public safety. Location and design of detention basin. The location of the detention basin, based on the architectural plan submitted with the application from Carl, is too close to the residents for its design. It is also a danger for children living in the vicinity. One of the residents recently reported seeing children playing in it. According to the Manual of Practice 2023 edition, the City of Urbana Land Development Code, Chapter 23, Stormwater Holding Basin Standards, page 167, number 11, quote, fences surrounding wet bottom retention basins are prohibited. We are also concerned about risks to the health and public safety of residents in the Carver Park subdivision and surrounding neighborhoods due to new infrastructure putting pressure on an old infrastructure, nuisance to the subdivision, including drawing mosquitoes and spreading disease. What is the plan for the detention pond in preventing these adverse impacts to the surrounding neighborhoods? No environmental impact assessment with neighboring residents or the community. An environmental impact assessment should have been done before the start of the project. Has an environmental impact assessment been completed? If so, we would like a copy. It's important to consider social, culture, health impact, waste, and water management. In addition, when using federal ARPA funds without community or stakeholder input, how will the rights of existing residents in surrounding neighborhoods be protected from future development that could impact their properties? According to a 2023 News Gazette article, state appropriations will be allocated to this project in 2024. This will be in addition to federal funds that have been pledged to the project using City of Urbana ARPA funds. Next is open transparency with community engagement, specific programs, and medical services to be used at this facility. We are not being provided with the opportunity to participate in important decisions that affect our neighborhood and community. First, there was no involvement in the final site selection process imposed upon predominantly a historically black neighborhood. At the second neighborhood meeting on July 13th, 2023, a Carl representative was asked where the other sites were located, and he responded that it was private information. After meeting with Kevin Garcia on August 23rd, Mr. Garcia sent us a copy of the 17 other locations which were provided to the project team by the City of Urbana. We visited the sites according to the appropriate size, and there were 2 locations that did not have an address listed. On October 6th, after the additional neighborhood meeting, all site locations were published in the News Gazette article entitled, quote, "Neighbors continue to object to Hope Village project in North Urbana," end quote. The success of a project is important for the project manager to be transparent in making all information, plans, challenges, and concerns available. The city requires development projects to be reviewed by a design board, such as the Architectural Board of Review or the Historic Landmark Commission. This can trigger the only public notice that nearby residents and landowners ever receive of a project that will affect them. For those fortunate enough to be able to view plans in person at the City Planning Department, there's typically a small window of opportunity for the public to review once the agenda is released. This can last from 1 to 4 business days, depending on which design board hears their project. These plans are often only required to be made available in advance for the public for the initial concept review and for the project design approval. For virtually all other meetings that take place, new plans never seen before by anyone can be rolled out on a table during a meeting for review. This lack of transparency makes it difficult for the public to understand the impacts of projects, and it cripples their ability to effectively comment on them. We are very concerned about the criteria of the medical program. Who will the residents be, and how will they be chosen? Can we get these answers in writing? What other diagnoses are there other than cancer? Next section, what is the value added to the community? We need something to help support the area economically and raise capital. Will the surrounding neighborhood's property taxes increase? Next section, proper notification process for all changes made in the future. The notification process, including 27 letters to property owners and the additional neighborhood review, was insufficient with conflicting information. Requirements and distribution. For example, 2 addresses are duplicates, and 2 appear to be within the 300 feet parameter defined in the zoning ordinance based on the list and map provided by Kevin Garcia. Samir Evans, Rashid Robinson, Habitat and Second Private Lot, Leroy D, Habitat, were not on the list to receive notification. Some listings are names of deceased and some are in trusts, making it difficult to determine the homeowner without certified mailing or other mailing verification. According to ordinance number 2023-07-023, an ordinance approving a preliminary development plan for a planned unit development, plan case number 2476-PUD-23, passed by the City Council on July 31st, 2023. In section 1, page 2, number 2, the final site plan is responsive to the concerns of neighboring residents. On October 5th, the Hope Village Community Forum was announced with a sign posted near the entrance of Carver Park subdivision, and flyers were placed on doors a few days, short window of time, before the event. It was scheduled for 1 hour. This forum was required to represent the additional neighborhood review included in the final ordinance. First, there was no agenda, with the meeting being dominated by Hope Village, Inc. chairperson. This meeting went over the scheduled allotted hour by 15 minutes, which included their sales pitch for Hope Village, which drastically reduced our time for questions and answers, and this meeting was supposed to have been for the community. The community had to force their way into the meeting with just a few comments and no definitive answers to follow. Flyers were distributed instead of mailings to residents in Champaign and Urbana neighborhoods surrounding Carver Park. How can we verify that proper notification was given within 800 feet? According to the zoning ordinance, page 239, quote, the applicant shall work with planning staff to, 1, identify the location for the meeting, and 2, send notice to all addresses and property owners within 800 feet, at least 10 days before the meeting, and 3, hold the meeting at least 7 days before the Plan Commission hearing. Summary. The final application submitted by Marty Smith on behalf of Carl Foundation does not fully address our significant concerns. We reserve the right to bring any further issues that have not been addressed in the application. And again, for further information, contact Jacqueline Curry, Darlene Bailey, Marianne Harrington, Joseph Wilson.
Thanks. So the reason that I'm asking about what criteria we would be using to make a decision about this. So I feel like the fact that we reviewed and recommended approval of the preliminary plat during the summer, I guess it was now, and then now we're suddenly presented with this subdivision, it's created a really odd twist to this in terms of the sequence. If we were to receive, this request to review a subdivision on its own, not knowing anything else about the project, would we have a reason to reject this? What would the criteria be for us to review whether or not it meets the requirements of the Land Division Code? Having said that, as Mr. Hopkins mentioned, we can't remove what we know, right? And so once this subdivision plat is approved, it forecloses certain options, and part of our conditional approval of the preliminary PUD back in the summer was that the site plan be revisited and that the site plan address and mitigate issues that the residents were raising. And it sounds like some of the significant concerns and issues that the residents have stem from this question of access. And if the subdivision plat is approved, then we are foreclosing the potential for that to be a way to mitigate concerns of the residents.
So a point of clarification, a subdivision isn't necessarily permanent. Parcels and land get replatted fairly frequently. You'll see names of subdivisions called replat of Lot 102, of replat of this subdivision or that subdivision. Granted, it may be cumbersome to make a correction to a plat, but both things need to eventually be done. Because the zoning ordinance requires a PUD to line up with a parcel, some other person could argue and say, well, the PUD that you're proposing doesn't meet up with a parcel. So create the parcel, and then we will review the PUD that is going to go on that parcel. If it turns out that a different configuration needs to be done, then theoretically a replat could be done where the land is brought back into one piece and then resplit into a different configuration. This is
Yeah,
not the
I get-
applicant's.
I
This is
get
just
that,
a
but
staffer.
I feel like there continues to be actions and steps taken that lock in future actions and decisions. I mean, I think there were objections raised about the idea of issuing building permits for the by right portion of this development, which has resulted in construction. And, you know, I was out there today and there's a retention pond hole, right? That there's never been an approved site plan beyond the two by right buildings. So I'm hesitant, I think, like Mr. Hopkins said, to recommend approving this, even though there's a way to back out of it. It just seems like the wrong course of action. Because, Mr. Hopkins.
I want to disagree with what Mr. Ricci said. The ordinance does not require that a PUD be restricted precisely to a parcel. It says a contiguous piece of land. And the PUD approval or disapproval or modification could account for the entire piece of land. A PUD doesn't have to show all of the detail of development of a contiguous parcel in one approval. So I see no reason to approve this ahead of time. And I remain opposed to it. If we vote on it, I will oppose it.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. I think there are examples of PUDs just to the east of this property that the development was not for the entire parcel and that we've amended the PUD later. So I think that's a correct interpretation. But irregardless, I'm not feeling comfortable. Mr. Fell?
Yeah, I have a similar, I'll say conclusion, but for a different reason. To me, if we disregard the PUD, which is what we're theoretically supposed to do in this case, the parcel that they're subdividing could absolutely be utilized. It has 2 points of access. That's Carver Drive and the drive to the other side. However, if we approve this, they certainly can only build a certain amount of impervious surface area, and their proposed electrical route is locked in unless they want to come back and revise the plat, I suppose. And I have very little confidence that the PUD is going to go through without changes. So if we approve this, to me, that's fine. if I was the applicant, I would probably want to withdraw it. Because if we approve it, the only option would be to approve the PUD as is or reject all of it. We can't modify it. So I have the same conclusion to reject it, but kind of for a slightly different reason. The applicant absolutely could modify the PUD on this parcel to obtain the objectives that I think that we're going to ask them to obtain. They could do that. It's a completely different site plan for them. But that's a different concern. That's not the concern in front of us right now.
Right. Well, we can do that. One other, just sort of thinking through the way to proceed with this. Is it best for us to make a motion and vote with the potentiality that it gets denied? Or is it worth considering withdrawing or giving them that opportunity?
Can we hear the PUD case and vote on that contingent on approval of this?
No.
No? All right.
Well, when you say contingent on approval of this, if certain modifications to the PUD were made, then this would no longer be consistent, so it can't be contingent on approval of this.
No, but we can hear the PUD case regardless, because the PUD can be created without a subdivided lot.
That's what I'm arguing, yes. And if that's accepted, I would suggest that we either table this, or if we can't do that, vote it down and proceed.
Can we ask the applicant what their rationale is for the subdivision, just to clarify?
Okay. That was Mr. Hopkins' request earlier. Sure.
It was, hey, good ideas tend to come back.
Seems like a good.
Thank you. I actually got up to answer that question earlier, and then it wasn't appropriate to respond at that time, so I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Marty Smith with Carl Health. There's a specific reason why we're subdividing. Carl Health is assisting this program along with University of Illinois and CCHC for Hope Village. Hope Village will be the owner of Lot 101, the south lot. Carl will retain ownership of Lot 102. It's being subdivided so that there's a specific line, a specific lot line, and a specific parcel that Hope Village will be built on. And that land is going to be donated by Carl to Hope Village. The remaining parcel will be undeveloped. Farmland will remain there for the unforeseeable future. And access to Lot 102 to the north will come in from Federal Drive. Access to Lot 101 for Hope Village will access from Carver Drive as it's proposed.
Mr. Hopkins, thank you.
I mean, that makes exactly the comment. By doing it, we fix access. If we want to discuss access, it's been removed from the discussion. Right? Now, the ownership is another interesting question, because Carl's role in this is also part of the community response, let me put it that way. And that Carl's ownership and donation of property can be dealt with later if this gets approved in some other fashion. But doing the PUD is not contingent on Carl's ownership of property.
I'd agree.
May I propose that we table this discussion? That would permit another agenda item to begin now and allow us to address these issues either in this meeting or in a subsequent meeting. Is that right?
Is that an option? I mean, do we want to leave this unresolved?
Oh, sorry. I think you have the option to table this until you address the PUD. But we are checking to make sure that the PUD, to see what the legal description was on the PUD, because it may have just included this piece.
Okay. Well, that would have been putting the cart before the horse, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it probably would have been, and the way I
Considering the
recall
original
it, I mean, the way I
agenda.
recall it, we had two pieces described, and they had pins associated with them. So I believe that it was advertised for the whole thing because there are no pins for these as yet to be subdivided lots. But I just want to make sure before we go forward with an option to consider the PUD case first.
Okay. Yeah, because
Or that it actually is relevant, because
the original agenda would have been the second item, so we would have considered the PUD not knowing the outcome of the subdivision. Sorry, right now we're doing some research to figure out how the information about the PUD was advertised in the legal notice in the newspaper, because that matters in terms of what we can do to act on that. I don't have a problem with you moving it. Yeah, that's fine.
all right, yes, so the PUD does, the application covered the entire lot, so I think you would be safe to table the plat discussion until after you address the PUD.
Okay, so do we need a motion to do that?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
By
Okay.
Robert's rules. I will move that we table plan case number 2479S23 to an indeterminate time within or at a future within this meeting or at a future meeting.
We have a motion by Mr. Hopkins. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Fell. All those in favor say aye.
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 Is a voice vote okay for this? Okay. Any opposed? Okay. Give me a second here. Mr. Fell. Okay, so that brings us to our new public hearing for this evening, which is plan case number 2480 PUD 23, a request by Maddie Smith on behalf of Carl Foundation for approval of a final residential planned unit development located south of Federal Drive and north of Carver Drive in the R3 single and two-family residential and R4 medium-density multifamily residential zoning districts. And I believe that we have a staff presentation.
we do.
So I'll turn it over to Mr. Garcia again.
I'm back. Okay. So this, yes, this is a request for final approval of a residential planned unit development that would include 30 small homes in a community center to provide permanent supportive housing for medically fragile homeless people. Construction is currently underway on the community center and one model home, as these are considered by right developments. And then just, if you look at your screen, I just wanted to remind everybody, you've seen this before during the preliminary PUD. But now we're at that stage for the final PUD where we get very specific and detailed plans. So specific site plans that include all of these items on there, landscape plans, stormwater plans, utilities, building elevations, and then a development program and development schedule. Those latter two, I inadvertently left those out of the exhibits, and you all should have printed copies of those. I passed those out before the meeting. The development program and development schedule, you should have something that says Exhibit M in your stack of goodies that I left at the beginning of the meeting. Is there not? Shenshi, you have one? Yeah. It's just one sheet. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so City Council approved the preliminary planned unit development for Hope Village on July 31st of this year. There were 3 conditions and 1 waiver. Again, that waiver was to waive all parking requirements for the site. So that's already been taken care of. And then the 3 conditions were slightly different than those recommended by Plan Commission, so I'll just read those here so we're all clear. Number 1 was that the final site plan is not constrained by the preliminary site plan. Number 2 is that the final site plan is responsive to the concerns of neighboring residents. And number 4 is that the applicant will hold an additional meeting with the public prior to submitting the final PUD application. There's more analysis or there's a staff analysis in Exhibit M attached to your staff report, but overall, we find that the applicant has met the intent of the conditions of the preliminary planned unit development approval. So this proposal, just as a reminder, this proposal qualifies for consideration as a PUD or as a residential PUD because it's on a site that's larger than half an acre. It can also be considered a unique development, which is development that significantly responds to the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan and other relevant plans and policies. There are, on your staff memo, on page 2, there is a discussion on how the proposed PUD meets many of the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. They are pretty numerous. I'm not going to go through all those here, but see page 2 of your staff memo if you would like to see more. In addition, planned unit developments have to be reviewed for consistency with 9 general goals outlined in section 13(3)C of the zoning ordinance, and we find that the proposed development is generally consistent with goals 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then section 13(3) of the zoning ordinance also lays out the criteria for approval for a planned unit development that the Plan Commission shall use to determine whether or not to approve a planned unit development. I'm not going to go through all those here. Again, those are in your staff memo. I did want to point out under item number 5 on page 5 that the proposed development is responsive to many of the relevant recommended design features identified in table 13(2) of the zoning ordinance. Those being just in general, the general site design, pedestrian connectivity, the parking areas, including parking landscaping, landscaping and screening, open space, architectural design, and signage. I'm going to cut to the chase, but then I'm going to go through site plans. But I'm going to just let you know that the staff recommendation is that you recommend approval of the final development plan to City Council. with the condition that the final development plans be in general conformance with the attached site plans. So without further ado, I will go to those site plans. So you'll see the site plan is pretty similar to the site plan that you all saw during the preliminary planned unit development. And again, the condition that was placed on the in the ordinance did not require them to make significant changes to the site plan, but it did leave that option open for the designers. They opted not to make significant changes, and so here is the final site plan. So again, it's got a community center in the middle. It's got this sort of parking area with a little loop cul-de-sac at the end of it. There are 30 tiny homes. There's a series of walking paths and emergency access paths throughout the site. I do want to point out, and just to clarify something, while yes, our manual of practice and other codes do not allow you to place a fence around a detention pond, the fence that they're proposing is not around the detention pond. It skirts the east, the south, and the west, but it is not entirely enclosing the detention pond. And that is in response to concerns from the neighborhood who did not want, voiced. We heard several times that they didn't want just an open detention pond for concerns about safety.
Can I interrupt you for a second, Mr. Garcia?
Sure.
We keep hearing reference to detention and retention. I'm familiar with detention being a dry pond and
Yeah.
retention being a wet pond.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry. This is a retention pond. It's going to be wet.
Okay, so it's mislabeled on
It
the
is.
plans. Okay.
It is. It is, yes. And the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong later on. But it's my understanding it's going to have water in it at all times. And I think they have some design reasons for doing that that have to do with passively heating and cooling the buildings. But I will let them describe that when they present. Okay, here's the landscape plan. So you'll notice a couple of things. So first of all, it's very green. There's lots of landscaping that's planned. Just starting over here. So there's a lot of areas identified that are sort of prairie plants and grasses. So some near the detention basin. I think an important piece here is is having this screen to screen because there are houses right here where this legend is. So screening the lights of cars in the parking lot from those houses. So it's actually kind of double screened because they also have some plantings along there. So that's nice. Down sort of in the southeastern area, they've got a lot of areas for sort of, I guess what you'd call passive recreation. I think I usually call it just hanging out outside. So they've got, again, more prairie plants and grasses down there, a garden area for use by the Hope Village residents. Again, there's walking paths that go throughout. There's a few rain gardens throughout, which would help. They can look nice, but they can also help with preventing additional stormwater runoff. So overall, pretty well landscaped and with native plants and rain gardens and such. I will point out that this is showing the old location of the fence, so this would need to be updated to show how the fence is now being proposed. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Okay. All right. This one is not terribly exciting, but I'll explain what's going on here. This is the grading plan. So this, in combination with the next piece, which is the utility plan, which I don't know why that's so small. But anyway, I'll start with the utility plan, because this is important. So all these lines on here are storm sewers. Well, not all the lines on there, but all these sort of straight lines going through the middle of this are storm sewers. So there are inlet points that you can see on the grading plan. Sorry, I don't like jumping around too much. Okay, so all these arrows that are sort of pointing to these circles, those squiggly arrows are all the water flowing to these circles, which are the inlet points, which then, if you look at the next one, I'm sorry, I don't want to make people dizzy. But then, yeah, if you look at the utility plan, so those inlets then all point to the detention basin. And then once they're in the detention basin, again, as I pointed out when we were looking at the plats earlier, the storm sewer then goes out of the retention basin. I'll keep saying that, retention, good. And then it all flows to the north. So again, away from the neighborhood and to points further north. The lighting plan is less exciting than the last one, but there's a requirement, so they show, and there's little points here. There's going to be, lighting along the paths, and then there will be one light here in the parking lot. Building elevations, which I know you all are excited to see because you were asking about it last time. So here's all of the homes are identical. And they're all, and I'll let the design team get into details, but you'll just see like they've got a lot of windows facing the south, which can take advantage of passive heating in the winter. The way that the building's designed is to take prevailing winds coming from the southwest, go across that detention pond, cool the air, and then flow through the houses and sort of, I think, flow up and out, sort of. For again, it's passive heating and cooling, which has lesser energy bills, and just also sort of is a green building practice. They also have these screened porches, so it'd give every resident there sort of a semi-private area to hang out, partially enclosed, sort of outside. So that's a nice feature. I think these units are about 680 square feet. I think was my calculation earlier. And then they also have a front porch out here that they can take advantage of as well. All the buildings are accessible and visitable, which is a word. So that's the building design. And then this is just the elevation of the community center, which again is under construction right now. And I'm sure the applicant can speak, or design team can speak to some of its features as well. And then finally, they are. I'll let the design team explain how all that works, but it's my understanding that you get air flowing across the water and it cools it, and then it flows through the houses and cools the houses as well. They are planning a monument sign, as we call these, which would be just inside the property. I could show you on the site plan if you're curious, but I think I might as well go do that. Yes, monument sign. So right here, so not too far on the property, but off of that entrance at Carver Drive. So that concludes my presentation. Again, we feel that this meets many of the, it really does meet the criteria that Plan Commission is supposed to use to make a determination for planned unit developments. So we recommend that you recommend approval of this to City Council. And I can take questions, and then I know the applicant is here to give a presentation as well.
Thanks, Mr. Garcia. Any questions for staff? Ms. Sims?
So can I have you go back to the beginning where you mentioned the criteria that we were supposed to, so we said that the final plan needed to take in community recommendations and concerns, and then there were like a couple other things. Can you reiterate those again?
Yeah, so the
Council's conditions, right?
Yeah,
That's what we're doing.
yeah. So the three conditions on that ordinance, and if you're following along at home, again, that's ordinance 2023-07-023. The three conditions were that the final site plan is not constrained by the preliminary site plan. The final site plan is responsive to the concerns of neighboring residents, and the applicant will hold an additional meeting with the public prior to submitting the final PUD application.
And if I'm correct, you did have the meeting, but that's the thing that I could sort of check off.
Yeah, they did hold a meeting. It was on
Yeah, that was the,
October 5th, I believe. Yes. It was well attended. I think I counted about 40 members of the public there, and then Champaign city staff, Urbana city staff, project team, of course.
Mr. Hopkins?
You mentioned Champaign City staff. Has there been any explicit coordination on Champaign role in infrastructure issues on Carver Drive and in Carver Park?
Can you I guess explain more of what you mean by, did you say coordinated? I mean, we've definitely had discussions. Our engineering staff and their engineering staff have.
So has there been any explicit proposal or consideration of Carver Drive infrastructure, which will be impacted by this, but is not within Urbana?
Right. So I know that our engineering staff and their engineering staff have discussed things, especially it sounds like they, on the Champaign side, are looking into these drainage issues that folks have brought up. It's my understanding they haven't observed any recurring drainage issues, but they do continue to monitor it. It sounds like they are taking it seriously, and they're getting out every time it rains to check it out, is my understanding of it. There hasn't been, to my knowledge, anything explicit like I know they are planning to address I think Dory Miller, which is to the east, which wouldn't actually access this site, but I know that's in, I think, the worst shape out of any of the streets there. It's my understanding that Champaign plans to put that in their capital improvement plan in 2025, or address it in 25, but I'm not totally sure about that, and I don't know if they have plans for Carver Drive itself.
Mr. Rose?
I'll let the design team handle that, but again, I think it deals with the prevailing winds and how they wanted to take advantage of that.
Mr. Fell?
Yeah, I assume the fire department has looked at this and they're fine with one access point.
They are.
Yeah, I just recall from previous projects, PUDs that have come before the commission in developments that are less dense than this, I would say, 2 access points were required. How is the decision that one access point here was okay? Not necessarily where it's from, that there's only one.
You mean from a public safety perspective?
Other cases similar to this, 2 access points were required.
Yeah, I cannot speak for our public works or our public safety, our fire folks, but we have them in the discussions early on, and I know that there were changes made to this site plan to help allay some of their concerns. But all I can tell you is that our fire department does not have concerns with this site plan.
In Exhibit M in the staff memo, this is the staff analysis of how the proposal responds to the criteria or the conditions that were set by council.
Mm-hmm.
Condition number 2 are the issues that are raised and analyzed there, are those conditions that came from the most recent public meeting?
Yes, but it comes from the previous exhibit, which is Exhibit L. I pulled them directly out of there because I felt like that letter from the Carver Park Neighborhood Association really articulated their positions well, and, laid out the concerns, which is, frankly, something that I was asking for because we want to, you want concrete concerns that can be addressed, because there certainly are many concerns that we heard voiced throughout, or that I heard voiced throughout many of the public meetings, but many of those are things that can't directly be addressed by, say, this development or a site plan in general.
Okay, but those concerns you're saying are representative of the concerns that were raised at the developers,
yeah.
the applicants meeting that they held. Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right, thanks, Ms. Garcia.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll briefly go over the rules for a public hearing. The petitioner or the applicant will first address the commission if they want to, and we may have some questions for them. Then anyone in favor will be allowed to address the commission, followed by anyone opposed. Then at the end, if needed, the petitioner can address the commission again and respond to comments that were made by the public. Then we'll close the public input portion and discuss and possibly entertain a vote. So if the petitioner wishes to come forward and address the commission.
Well said. Okay, thank you.
Yes, welcome.
Again, I'm Marty Smith with Carl Health, one of the collaborative partners in the project with Hope Village. I think if I could just for a brief minute, let's talk about how we got here and the involvement of this project in this process. And so again, we're here tonight as the next step of the approval process for Hope Village. The Hope Village was initiated from Claudia Lenhoff and her team at Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, CCHCC. In their service with individuals experiencing chronic homelessness, they witnessed heartbreaking examples within a specific population. These individuals are medically fragile and are hard to house, as they do not do well in group settings or transitional housing. So in response, Hope Village will offer permanent supportive housing with intense wraparound casework. Claudia and her team, recognizing they did not have the resources or experience in constructing a project of this undertaking, reached out to Carl and the University of Illinois for assistance. The entities, CCHCC, Carl, and the University of Illinois, came together in a community collaborative effort to help build this project, while Hope Village, Inc. organized, filed not-for-profit status, and developed their own governing board and operational model, which is still ongoing and in process as we speak. During this process, Carl Health has stepped up and purchased the land, which we propose to subdivide, donate the portion of the subdivided land which Hope Village will sit on, and retain the balance of land for future use. And right now, it looks like it'd be farming for quite some time. In addition to that, Carl has stepped in as the applicant because of Hope Village's lack of not-for-profit status while that's still in process. Hope Village articles of organization were filed with the state of Illinois on June 8th of this year, and Hope Village continues to work on obtaining their 501c3 status, which is a very lengthy process. In the meantime, the three entities, CCHCC, Carl Health, and the University of Illinois, are working together to bring this project to fruition. Throughout the process, we've sought neighborhood and public input. We've hosted 3 neighborhood meetings. We've had numerous discussions with groups and individuals, and there have been numerous opportunities for public comment before the City Council and other agencies. As a result of the neighborhood meetings and the letter sent to us by the Carver Subdivision Association, we've made some changes to address those. To begin with, the traffic, all Hope Village resident and visitor parking will be contained on site. There'll be no parking from Hope Village on Carver Drive. Traffic assessment, amount of traffic is continuing to be a point. We did obtain a traffic assessment from Clark Dietz. And here's an excerpt from that assessment. The proposed development includes one community center, approximately 5,000 square feet, and 30 single occupancy residential units, approximately 475 square feet each. The community center is anticipated to have 8 to 10 employees and a parking lot with a maximum capacity of 17 spaces. The residential units are designed for occupants without vehicles, but up to 5 resident vehicles are included in the calculations. Based on this information and an analysis utilizing the Institute of Transportation Engineers Manual, the proposed development is anticipated to add 15 vehicle trips to Carver Drive during morning and evening peak hours. So very minimal increased traffic impact with this project. The next item of concern was drainage. Hope Village stormwater and sewer discharge, as you'll see in the design when the team goes through the presentation, everything runs north. The grading of the site all slopes to the north, ensuring no additional drainage issues to the neighborhood, and we are not tapping into the existing infrastructure of the neighborhood other than the public water line, which has access out on Carver Drive. All other storm sewer, sanitary sewer work, as you'll see in the presentation on the site work, does not connect to Carver Drive and all flows away to the north. The retention pond, while this ensures that all water to be retained on site and discharged to the north with no impact on the neighborhood to address the safety concerns raised, we have also extended and modified the gate of the community so that the detention pond is inside Hope Village without access from the neighborhood to address the safety concerns that were brought up. Additionally, the concern of mosquitoes in standing water is addressed as an aerator or fountain will be installed in the pond. The next item of concern was excessive noise from emergency vehicles, late night ambulance runs, or what there may be in any subdivision with emergency vehicles. We've had discussions with the ambulance companies as well as members of the fire department, and we are assured that when a 911 call is made, if the caller requests that sirens be turned off as they enter the neighborhood, that the request would be honored to help avoid any excessive loud emergency vehicle noise in the neighborhood. The other items that came from our neighborhood concerns and the subdivision's letter, we put in a temporary gravel road from Federal Drive so that no construction traffic of any kind, including construction worker cars or trucks, would park on Carver Drive nor access the site during construction through Carver Drive. The other item that came, we pulled back from the preliminary plan. You'll see that we pulled back the parking space further away from the subdivision and created a deeper buffer with more green space and additional screening to eliminate headlights into the subdivision. Those were the concerns raised that we've been able to address through this process. There's been a question about value add to the neighborhood, and I would propose a couple of items that we consider to be value add for Carver Drive or Carver Park subdivision. First off, we're providing a much lower density development than any previous proposed project and much lower than allowed by right. For example, current zoning would allow 3-story buildings with 352 one-bedroom apartments or 493 efficiency apartments with parking spaces for 250 to 350 cars. This would obviously create significantly more than the 15 vehicle trips from Hope Village. Additionally, this project, with access from Carver Drive, will permanently restrict any additional traffic or impact to the neighborhood from future development, eliminating any possibility of access from the north through Carver or Dory Miller. Dory Miller and Carver Drive will dead end into Hope Village, and at no point in the future could future development create additional traffic through the subdivision. We've engaged the neighbor, Hope Village is also working with Ameren as a partner on the project, and through that process, we're in discussion with them that the partnership that we were creating through Hope Village will also extend into the surrounding neighborhoods. Ameren is working on plans to review and upgrade street lighting and/or ensure that the current infrastructure is up to grade and meets proper working condition. Additionally, along those lines, because of the leverage and the participation we're getting from Ameren, we have been in discussion with the City of Champaign Neighborhood Services Program. They have indicated that they're looking at replacement of Dory Miller Drive in one of their next budget years, whether it's a year or 2 years, I can't speak for them. But additional discussion about sidewalk repairs, potholes, and improvements within the neighborhood are all being reviewed as a result of Hope Village now engaging Ameren and the City of Champaign. The other discussion with the City of Champaign relates to the ability for Carver Park subdivision to officially and formally apply as an organized association, which will then make the subdivision eligible for grant dollars, such as money to improve or replace the subdivision monument sign out at Bradley and Carver, as well as other amenities that come with being an organized and recognized subdivision association. Additionally, Carl Mobile Clinic, through our community health initiatives, will be providing the mobile clinic service and fresh produce grocer bus to the village, which will also be available for the surrounding neighborhoods to access those services. The last item would be that, engagement with the Hope Village and the residents throughout the neighborhood. We would still desire that there be a strong relationship between the neighbors and Hope Village, the residents, and our organization, and intend to create a neighborhood advisory board to try and continue those relationships after Hope Village is operational. With that, I think we'd like to have the design team walk through the slides that you just saw with a little more detail so you can understand the intentionality of the design and the process that we've gone through to really create a really substantial opportunity to serve this population.
Okay, my name's Brian Kessler. I'm with Architectural Expressions in Champaign. My bedtime's usually about 9 p.m., so I'm gonna do my best here. But if I'm a little slow, give me a break. I am one of several architects and engineers that contributed to the design of this project. We're all local companies, even the contractors we've started working with here. I want to start off with a little bit of a preamble, and I want to make sure that we're focusing, why we're all sitting in this room here today. There are certainly a lot of different ways that we could have designed this development. I think all the conversations surrounding different options and ideas is great. We're certainly all used to that as designers, but I also want to be clear about why we need a PUD, and that's for 2 reasons. One is that the zoning ordinance would cause us to put in an unnecessary amount of parking. We don't need a huge parking lot for residents that simply don't have vehicles. The second is that the zoning ordinance does not currently have a mechanism for allowing multiple single-family homes on the same lot. So those are the 2 reasons we're in this room. Those are the 2 reasons we need a PUD. We could turn around tomorrow and circumvent both of those and build this complex without asking anyone. And I don't mean for that to sound insensitive. I just really want to focus the conversation on why we're here for the PUD. And having said that, I do want to make it clear to everyone in the room that as a design team, we've done our best to try to take the input that we've gotten so far and translate that into meaningful changes in our plans. We were, of course, hired by the owners. we don't necessarily have a stake in this from an operational perspective. We're just trying to do the best that we can as architects and engineers, and I hope that this presentation that I'm about to go through here helps illustrate that. And I think I got my slides out of order. But of course, when we're designing, we look at the whole development cohesively. But for the purpose of this presentation, we're kind of subdividing it into 3 points here: the site, the community building, and the small home design. This graphic you've seen before, but I want to talk a little bit more about some of the thought process behind the layout of the site. I know no one believes our passive cooling strategy, so we'll just take that off the table for the moment, unless Bridget may talk about it a little bit more with the small home. But truly the reason for having that, we're going to call it a detention basin, because my understanding is if it has an outlet, it's a detention basin. If it doesn't have an outlet, it's a retention basin. I don't know, I'm not a civil engineer, so don't quote me on that, but that's my understanding. And this one has an outlet.
It's a wet pond and it has a controlled outlet. So that's what, you call it whatever you want. That's what we're talking about.
Thanks, we got it.
So part of the reason for putting the pond in the lower left corner and the parking across the south end of the site is to further the buffer and reduce the impact on the neighborhood to the south. We figured the farther we set our homes back, the community center back, the more of a buffer zone we would create between the two areas. And we thought that the Carver Park neighborhood would be appreciative of that, rather than having the homes or community center pushed directly to the south and against other homes. The reality is, this stuff could have gone on the site in a lot of different ways, but I think as Marty mentioned, developing the southern half of the site, I think really safeguards the rest of the community from some sort of other future development that would have a much higher impact use moving in. We had almost 12 acres. We simply don't need it. We don't need 12 acres for 30 small homes and a community center. As it is, the density of this development is akin to single-family homes, which is what they are. We tried to orient the homes in the community center so that we're taking advantage of convection for passive cooling. We tried to get our roof planes such that we were maximizing our southern exposure. The pond it's not to the north, which is where the water ultimately heads, but it is immediately adjacent to our largest swaths of impervious area, which are the parking, paving, of course, and the community center. As Marty mentioned, we have, or maybe it was Kevin, we have 17 parking spaces, I believe, only anticipating 6 to 8 vehicles at any given time. I think the water easement that was at one time running through the site has since been vacated, but I know that's come up a few times also. Just wanted to be clear about that. The next series of diagrams depict where various utilities are going. So in this one, we're showing the sanitary sewer, which is collected, runs to the north, and then exits the site to the east. The storm sewer is collected, runs through the pond, exits to the north, so it doesn't create any adverse impact on the neighborhood to the south. The water line is pulled from the south and has been tied in already. Power is fed from the north from an Ameren transformer and runs along the east. And this is just a network of all the utilities combined, and I don't know how many people can actually see this on their screens, but this is a rendering of the entrance of Hope Village. So on the left, you see where we have our ornamental fencing that is going to our parking area and the community center, and then you see a few of the small homes in the brown. This is a floor plan for the community building. On the bottom portion, we have case manager offices and a site manager office, so that's 6 offices in total. We have an executive director office, some staff support space, And then across the top are resident services. So they have a little store where they can get basic supplies that they may need in their small home. So, you know, if you need toiletries or snacks or something like that, those items are available on site. There's a security office and a laundry room, and then the large room on the lower right is a community space. So it's for resident gatherings or community gatherings. It has a teaching kitchen in it where residents can learn how to make their own food and cook. In terms of the overall design of the community building, we did try to take some sustainable aspects in mind, although they're not as extensive as what we did in the small homes. We tried to offer as many amenities as we possibly could for residents and for the neighboring community. This is a rendering of the outside of the community center. We tried to use generally high-quality materials. We're not using vinyl siding. It's all engineered siding. We've got various different colors. We've kind of tried to create an aesthetically pleasing building with a little bit more of a modern edge, but one that would also fit in nicely in a residential area. It also sort of mimics the architecture and design of the small homes. And speaking of those, Bridget is going to take over.
Hi. So we're going to share a little bit about how we got to the small home design. First, we started with the word cloud. I don't know if a lot of people use those, but basically however often I heard the words come out of people's mouths during the preliminary discussions with the owners and everyone, the bigger the word is. It was very important for every single unit to be accessible. They want people to feel like they own the home, that this is their home. And because we're dealing with a medically fragile population, they may go through various forms of mobility while they're there. And we don't want them to have to shift from Unit 7 to Unit 4 because they need the one that's more ADA compliant. Guided how we proceeded with the design. This is our plan and the elevation. We also took some surveys around to say, what is a home? What makes a home a home? Some of the stuff we got from that was when you walk in, you have somewhere to put your coat. It's not like a hotel where you're just sort of throwing your coat wherever, that you actually have a sort of entry. You're not just coming into the kitchen. The screened-in porch became a very important element. This population, some people will be very happy to be inside their unit and sleep in a bed and not be able to see outside. And sometimes some of them will long to still be outside when they're sleeping. So we're gonna put a skylight over the bed so they can choose to have that skylight open or closed so they can actually see the stars from inside their room while they're sleeping. And then we felt it very important to make a screened-in porch, the sort of elevated way of sleeping outside. How can we make it so it doesn't look like they're hanging around outside sleeping on their porch? Give them a screened-in porch. That's where we want them to go hang out and experience the outside. We have a storage area outside. A lot of people might have things like carts or things that they've been keeping all their items in, and we don't want them to bring that inside. We want them to have a different way of life. So giving them a secure place to store that outside of the unit became very important. The utility room is accessed from the outside. We don't want anybody to have to enter their unit to be able to service any of the equipment. We want them to actually feel safe and secure, part of the trauma-informed design. The entry door opening in is a trauma-informed design thing. So somebody can stand behind a door, and I'm sure we've all done it, where we sort of wedge a foot behind the door and open up the door to see who's there. That's something that we've incorporated. Having doors that you can prop open, believe it or not, bathroom doors, bedroom doors, that there's a way that they can actually put a lock on them so they stay open, because closed doors can be a source of trauma. Otherwise, it's like a one-bedroom apartment, a little bit bigger because we wanted, again, all of them to be accessible so that they could stay in the same unit throughout their mobility needs. Some of the sustainable things that we incorporated, we try to stay with as close to a square floor plan as possible. Square floor plans have less area of exterior wall. than a rectangular one, so they're just innately more energy efficient. Try to limit the windows on the east and west as much as possible, because as the sun rises and sets, it's hard to control that light coming in and keeping it from heating when you don't want it to. Use thicker walls and roof. We're actually using BAMCore, which is a product out of California. And if you know SIPS panels, it's like SIPS panels, but it's like the IKEA version is the way I describe it. The bamboo comes and you put the plates down, you put the outside on, then you can run all of your electric and everything, then fill it with the insulation and then put another layer of bamboo. Because it has 2 layers of that sheathing, that wood sheathing, it's very strong, and so you have less studs. And so the U values are tremendous, plus of course bamboo is a renewable material. And then try to incorporate passive design as much as possible. We had an employee that used to work for us, and he was always in love with sustainability, and to the point where he said, California's the place I want to be, because that's where you go to like learn about sustainability. So he went there. So as soon as we got this project, I brought him back in, and he took his professors and researchers that he's working with down there and showed them the plan, and that's where we came up with a lot of the passive design decisions that we made. Making sure that we were incorporating sun, and making sure that the sun can get in during the wintertime, but keep it out during the summertime is just a passive thing to make sure that it doesn't heat up during the summer. Incorporating passive. The majority of our wind during the times that we want to capture it, so during the spring and fall when it's kind of temperate outside, you don't want somebody to turn on their air conditioner too early. You don't want them to turn on the heat too early. Most of our wind comes from that southwest direction. So we put that screened-in porch on the southwest so they could open up their door, capture that wind, and bring it in throughout their units. That slide got a little messed up. Personalization, I believe is what that's supposed to say over on there. We wanted to make sure that because we want them to feel like this is indeed their own house, we wanted to give them opportunities to personalize it. Part of that comes from having a little stoop outside where they can actually decorate, they can do some gardening, they can put some pots on there, stuff like that. But also giving them a sense of their space. We wanted the front to seem like the area where people are welcome to come in. That's where their screened-in porch is. But we strove for that upper right portion that's highlighted in orange to be more private, to have less views out of it. A lot of the windows are really high, so somebody's not looking out into someone else's screened-in porch. So since they're all oriented the same way, that achieved privacy for everyone. And that's it. Questions? That's in order.
Thanks. Any questions for the applicants? No? All right, thank you.
I was here mostly for questions, but yeah.
You have a question for?
Yeah, he's gone over all the elements of the site, so. We've gone over, Brian already went over most of the elements of the site. I'm here for questions if you have them.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now I'll open it up to the public. If you'd like to address the commission, you can come forward, state your name, sign in, and give us your input. We'll do this in the order of anyone who is in favor of the project or the proposal, come forward first, and then anyone who is opposed. So is there anyone in favor of the proposal that wants to address the commission? You can come forward now. All right, anyone opposed to the proposal that wants to address the commission?
It's me again, Marcus Johnson. I oppose, and the reason why I oppose is because, well, you've heard our rejection and understanding that it does not bring a value to the community, and it's going to bring I'm just trying to make it real simplistic so you just understand without all the big words and this, that, and the other. It's going to bring a lot of traffic to Carver Drive, simply. And just like we all explained, there's only really two ways in, Federal Drive or Carver Drive, right? One way in, one way out, really. But it doesn't sound like our rejection is being respected. And I don't know if I'm saying this right, or am I saying this right? Okay. So that's the thing I really want to address here. We've heard talks about it. We've come to the meetings. You've said a couple of times that though it's a public hearing, the public input isn't really required, but you want to hear our input, which sounds like to me that you're going to do it anyway, right? Well, we're asking that you don't. So that's all I need to say about that. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Just to clarify, the public input wasn't required for the subdivision proposal, but for this proposal, there is definitely a public input that's required. No problem.
Good evening. My name is Darlene Bailey. I'm a resident of the Dr. Ellis subdivision. And this is one of the reasons why it's hard to get someone out to city council, because most of the people who wanted to really speak, they couldn't stay. But I have a question. Wasn't this the congestion and the size and location of Francis Nelson? Wasn't this the reason why it was moved? If that is the case, then Francis Nelson could have stayed where it was and just expanded it out. But if you close Francis Nelson down because of size and congestion, and then put another subdivision over here, which is going to cause the same thing. But this project has been a rushed, deceptive project from the beginning. I've been in it from day one. And there's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of untruths. I won't just come out and say a lie, but untruths been told in this. I've done a lot of research. I went down a lot of rabbit holes. And when I got through with it, this was not for the homeless. This is pretty much a nursing facility, a nursing home, or a hospice center, because just regular homeless people cannot go into this facility. And we get into the selling of these plots inside of Hope Village to these people, which we were told in the very beginning that these plots would be, separate plots would be sold to the people, the residents there that's coming in. And these people are to have stage 4 cancer or hard to house. But the stage 4 cancer people is what's been played up repeatedly, highly. So that gave us the conception that this is what it's going to mostly be, stage 4 cancer people. And I know about stage 4 cancer, okay? My brother, we just buried him on the 15th of September from stage 4 cancer, and we went through that with him step by step. I understand these things, okay? A lot that's going on, I understand. And with the access through Carver Drive through Carver Park, to me, is totally disrespectful, because this community cannot support that type of construction and community. You've got these beautiful homes, this walking trail, everything laid out so beautifully, and you're putting it in the neighborhood that cannot support this. Okay, we need revenues, okay? If you're gonna bring in something that can help generate revenues that will help us take care of this area. We want this area to be beautiful and well-rounded and well-respected, just like any other community in Champaign-Urbana. But we can't do it without the revenues. And you're bringing in tax-exempt facilities. Somebody's going to have to pay the taxes on this. And we are already stressed. You're putting this in a stressed area. This would have been a better fit for an area with a better infrastructure and more economic, finances coming in to support it. We have never said we was against Hope Village, okay? I told you, I know some of these people. I don't know if I know the ones you're talking about, because we have never seen not one person that will be going into this facility. We have not heard a comment from one person that's going into this facility. We don't even know if they exist. And from some of the other falsehoods that's been given to us, it's like a slap in the face. This is not a good fit for Carver Park. Now, if you're going to build it somewhere else, I will come and help you. This is not a good fit for Carver Park. I don't care how you address it. If that is the case, I want to know about this fence. I want to know about the plots that's being sold to these people. They're going to be sold to the people that's coming in, and then when these people pass, this land will return to this 501c3. So if you're bringing in all stage 4 cancer people, not all, I'm pretty sure, you can at least sell these plots 3 times a year, right? Am I wrong? If you're going to resell them, and the people are going to think that these are actually their homes. But I'm like, what are y'all doing? And when these people pass on, okay, who's responsible for burials? Who's going to take care of this? What kind of contract is going to be signed for these people to think that these are their homes? There's a lot more to this than what's being aired. We have been told different things all the way down the line. But I want you to know that I understand. And I can see what's actually happening here. Carver Drive has to be open for a certain reason. Have you ever thought about that? When we asked, it was like, no. Why no? What does Carver Park have to do with this? And why are you insisting on access from this area? There has to be something else that goes along with this, that you would need to have that open so that the people can walk through and catch the bus down there on Bradley. But you told me they were going to be stage 4 cancer people that weren't going to be walking that much. I am upset about it, yes. And I want you to know this is just Carver Park. We stand with Carver Park because I can stand in my yard and see Carver Park, okay? And my property is well maintained, inside and out. And I respect my home, I respect my neighborhood, and I will stand for my neighborhood. We all know that is something else to this. This is not a good fit for Carver Park. Carver Park infrastructure. They're going to come out of this area, I don't want to describe it like that, and walk over here to these beautiful homes and have potlucks with somebody behind a locked-gated fence. But let me go back to this. In the very beginning, we were told that this would be 30 tiny homes in a lock-gated community operated by biometrics under the surveillance 24/7, and it would contain a commissary, a hair salon, and other, in there. So everyone did leave with the conception that that sounds like a mini prison here. It was the way it was explained. If you was there and heard it, you'd said the same thing. So don't get upset with us because we care about our community, regardless of what you think of it. We care about our community, and I'm going to stand with it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that wants to address the commission?
My name is Jacqueline Curry. I am a resident of Carver Park. I piggyback with Ms. Darlene. I agree with everything she says. We have asked questions, we haven't gotten answers, or they were vague answers. And as far as checking off the list, as far as what was done for the residents and everything, this last meeting we had, if that's what you want to call it, it was not a meeting. We were told it was going to be an hour long. Now, when you have something for a public to answer, question and answer period, you don't put a time limit on it. You make it necessary to where they can get their answers and are satisfied with the answers. And if you can't give them an answer, you say, I will get back to you. And actually do it, yes. 7 o'clock came, people were trying to ask questions. They were rushing, trying to get us out of there. They didn't want to hear anything we had to say. So I feel like that last meeting, you shouldn't even count it because it was not a qualified and bona fide meeting. Now, you need to listen to us. I don't know what else we need to do, but I lived up in this neighborhood my entire life, short of 10 years. I'm 62 years old. I don't feel like we should be disrespected. I feel like we need to be heard. You need to listen, and you need to do more for your residents because that's what you guys were elected or volunteered for. Not to go and do everything that you want for the companies to do or where they can bring more money in because when it's all over with, we're going to end up paying the taxes for all this stuff that's going on. And it's not in your backyard, it's in ours, and you need to listen to us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, I'm Leroy D., and I live on Carver Park. I'm like one house down from where all this is happening. I work from home, so I'm there all day. And of course, I see traffic going up and down, which they say they don't, but it is. And with the pond, I have grandkids that I'm raising. And kids are curious. I know that I'm watching my kids, but you never know about someone else's kid. This weekend, there was kids over there playing. I yell out, get away from there. You know, the pond is a big mistake. It's too close to our neighborhood. And I'm not against this because my dad was homeless. I tried for years to get him off the streets. I'm not against it. Actually, I'm for it. I just don't, that's not a place for it.
Thanks for your comment.
Hello, I'm Audra Owens, back for the final time. I'd like to reiterate what I've heard several times on this side. We are not against Hope Village. We are not against Hope Village. We are not against Hope Village. What we are against is the way that Hope Village was presented to us. What we are against is the fact that when we ask to be heard by people who are in positions such as yours or the Champaign side or the Urbana side of water or whatever, we are always told, we'll get back to you, and they don't. Or they sidestep the issue, which they do. And the majority of these meetings feel like a checked box so that they can simply say that they went through the motions of hearing us. Tonight, we had 4 people sitting up there, and they talked about Hope Village. They talked about everything that might happen in Hope Village. They talked about all of these wonderful things that they're going to provide in Hope Village. However, that could happen simultaneously with Carver Park. But the way they made it sounded like an afterthought. You know, 2 or 3 years down the line, we might get this. We might get that. But we do know already that starting in 2024, this is what's going to happen in Hope Village. Every time somebody came up here and decided to let us know about Hope Village, the positives about Hope Village, they didn't tell us how Hope Village was going to improve the value of Carver Park. They didn't tell us how it was going to fix Dory Miller Drive. They didn't tell us how it was going to fix Crispus Attucks Drive. But they did tell us how it was going to help everybody else except the residents of Carver Park. Yes. We are the only ones who have not been in the loop since the beginning. Been to meetings, yes, but not in the planning, but not in the inception, and not in the decision to vote on these things. I'm just saying, take into account when you hear the residents of Carver Park, they are expressing legitimate concerns. And we need to know, just like Ms. Hersey said at the end of her letter, we need to know that we are being heard.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marion Harrington, and I live in the adjacent community, Crispus Attucks. And the residents have left out one key issue: the access to Hope Village. Like I said, we're not against Hope Village, for Hope Village. It's a good idea. But the access through Carver Park isn't a good idea. And that's what needs to change. The address is on Federal Drive. All the construction is coming through Federal Drive. If they would just flip the plan around and bring it through Federal Drive and separate our community from Hope Village, I don't think we have a problem. I think subdividing that 2 parcels would eliminate the access to Federal Drive, and I don't think you should vote on that. And I don't think until our concerns and stuff are heard that you should vote on the final planning either. But our main concern is coming through our community. You can go around and go through Federal Drive, but we don't want the access to come through Carver Drive. It's going to cause more traffic, and you say it won't because you just have the few parking spots. But what I mean by traffic is the transit that's going to be coming through there trying to get to Hope Village. I see it all the time. The traffic coming from Washington and Market Street. You don't have to have stage 4 cancer to be medically fragile. And I see medically fragile people standing over there all the time. And as soon as Hope Village goes up, where do you think they're coming from? They're going to be coming right over there through our neighborhood. And that's what we don't want. I'm looking way down the road at what's going to happen. You may not see it, but we do, because we live in it, and we don't want it. Thank you.
Thank you. there anyone else that wishes to address the commission in opposition?
There's already a letter that I sent. I just wanted to say a few words. My name is Eldris Melinda Carr, and I do want to thank the Plan Commission for the June 22nd meeting in which you allowed some mitigating factors, and that was important for where we are today, to allow the community to have concerns. And there were like 3 or 4 of us here that spoke. So I do want to thank you for allowing that to be a part of it, because we're here today and we're able to do our fighting. So also I didn't include this letter, but there was a letter, and I had to get it from the site somewhere, but it was from the chancellor, and I can't go back up and find it. I don't know. It must have been part of some exhibit. But I just wanted to read and see, maybe it's November 9th, 2022. Dear Urbana City Council members, I'm pleased to enthusiastically support the Hope Village and tiny homes community and coordinated care for the chronically homeless in the Champaign-Urbana area. This village is a joint effort with Champaign County Healthcare Consumers Call Foundation and the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, aiming to provide housing solutions and intensive case management for the, quote, hard to house, unquote, homeless population. The idea of the village was presented to the Chancellor's Executive Leadership Council on May 5th, 2022, and received notable approval and support from campus leadership. As part of our land grant mission, the University of Illinois is proud to engage in education with community impact. The village infrastructure and operational plans align with our educational efforts across campus, including the Granger College of Engineering, School of Architecture, and the College of Fine and Applied Arts, Carle, Illinois College of Medicine, and the Siebel Center for Design. Additionally, Dr. Wanda Ward, Executive Associate Chancellor for Public Engagement, has been actively involved in planning efforts for the village, strengthening the connection between the university and the community. In this village partnership, the University of Illinois will support active translational research for improved health outcomes and community sustainability. Leadership from Dr. Ashlyn Stilwell, Associate Professor in Civil and Environmental Engineering, Dr. Rashid Bashir, Dean of the Granger College of Engineering, and Professor Francisco Rodriguez Suarez, Director of the School of Architecture, has supported the site plan and design for functionality and sustainability. Building on the world-class research on our campus, our faculty will support the village through innovative site master planning and layout, non-intrusive monitoring for health conditions, and customized case management, and infrastructure design for sustainability. The village presents many opportunities for Illinois research and action to make a positive difference in the community. Finally, the village partnership enables authentic student engagement in the Champaign-Urbana community. We're training the leaders of tomorrow, yet our students are already leaders in campus efforts that design and build innovative housing, reduce local food insecurity, and build community, period. Through Illinois efforts for community-engaged scholars, our students can actively engage in an innovative and transformative approach of the village. The University of Illinois is pleased to join the Hope Village effort and looks forward to impactful and exciting future of this tiny homes community. Sincerely, this is signed by the Chancellor, so I'm just saying, I don't know where this fits in. It's not available apparently, but this shows that there's some kind of research, there's things going on. It really is more institutional type of environment. And so I just wanted to bring this forward. I didn't include this because I didn't have a copy, but I pulled it somewhere doing my research, but it's not available up on the site. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you.
name's Robert Lewis. I'm a former council member, and I appreciate what all you do. This young lady that does a lot of research for the committee. As a designer, when I hear information like that, I draw certain conclusions about it and what is behind a lot of these actions, especially by the University of Illinois, since it's a land-grant university, and some high-powered research people there. A lot of things going on in our community that you wouldn't even want to know about, like at Nanotech. Some of the waste they have out there, you'd say, wow, what is that going on in there? I'm aware of it. I've been around that stuff for a long time. I'm trying to retire from it. I'm having a hard time. But when I see how manipulative certain groups of people are, and no reflection on the Planning Commission and what they have to do, they have to check the boxes off. I know that. There's things behind the scenes that we see. I came to council, I asked questions. I got 0 answers. When I get 0 answers, I go get it for myself. All right? I talked to the engineers in Champaign, one of the former employees of Urbana. He's in regional planning now. We had a long conversation. Engineers as well. We met with them. I talked to them. If I wanted to find out why that little easement was across the drawings, I found out, yes, it was abandoned 5 years ago, and eventually the paperwork will be through, and that answered my question. But I could have asked that, and nobody answered me. So there's a lot of things out there that we are exposed to, we think are great. Folks have done a lot of research when it first touched ground. I would behoove you to listen to them and the Ward 3 representative. She said no from the beginning because she knew what was coming. Had some foresight, more so than a lot of you. And I'm appalled at the fact when I pay taxes and I pay for people's services, I don't get them. I get ticked. And that's why I'm here. But I think you are good people. You have a good head on your shoulder, and you can make the right decisions about what this thing needs to be. One thing that appalls me about this detention basin is they didn't think about the children in the community and how they would. I know what they're going to do. I was a little kid once. I'm going to see if I can swim in it. I know it's 14 foot deep. Somebody's going to drown over there. That's all it is to it. I know what the international codes say. You can't put a fence around it. And this nice environmental water pond to, quote, give people nice, clean, cold air coming to their homes. They prevail out of the Southwest, and you got big trees behind it. That's absurd. You're not going to get a flow across there. You'll get an upset airflow across this whole village. You can't play games with people that know. Some people do, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hopefully will be a valid protest coming, and some of that information came with the letter. I hope you got a copy of it so that you can see some of the things that we're asking related to the properties. And as looking at the 40% that we need for the core properties that fall within that parameter, because some of the things we had to spend some time trying to find who the people are. So we do have that coming, so I'm asking that you consider that as well as we
Thank you.
My name is Jonathan Howard. Recently, last year, I almost got killed last year by the car almost crashing into my house. And when I heard about this traffic, I don't want this happen to anybody else. If those bricks was not on the side of the house, I would have died there. I don't want this to happen to anybody else. That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you.
Yes, praise God. Brother Robert said, I'm good. Bishop, do you have anything to say? I can't hear. And yeah, I should have gotten my ears tested, but they would not allow. They had to do penicillin because of my main tube. But it's something that sit and not be able to hear. And that's what I'm going through. I can't hear my husband talk. But I thank and praise God for all the work. See, I'm 80 years old, and I've been involved ever since I was the elected official, the first Black African American on the Board of Education in Urbana in the history in 1968. And where they were meeting sometime before I got there, they couldn't meet because I was black and they couldn't have it there in my lifetime. So I'm just saying, you know what we've been through. Carver Park, George Washington Carver, Atchis Court. We know who these folks are. We couldn't live anywhere. We couldn't live anywhere. Still, there's still problems. I've been at the university. I worked there for 30-some years. I know about cars. Everybody knows. And you all think, well, they're negative. I'm the most Christian person I know, and I love everybody, and we better love everybody, because it's what's happening over in Israel. Jesus, I'm not proselytizing. He could crack the sky in a minute, and if we got something in our hearts, we'll be left behind. I'm talking to the Christians now. But so I have to be mindful of how I feel about all of this. But I'm traumatized, I'm hurt. I'm talking to all of my children all over the country, all over the world, because some in the military and grandchildren and all, about what's going on in their community and how we try to get, and I thank God for the people going door to door, you know, giving the people information, because we can't get to the press. I've been talking to the News Gazette, Smile Politely, the other television stations stuff, but when they came to the meeting over there, excuse me, everybody here know when they didn't even interview us. They interviewed the car people, the people in authority. They didn't want to hear from us.
And the meeting was supposed to be for us.
It was supposed to be for us. It was a public hearing. Mr. Garcia admitted after, I'm not saying you admitted, Terry Townsend brought it up. That the meeting was supposed to be for us. Public, it's called a public what? Forum. That's right, community forum. And he agreed. But then they kept on doing their thing, and we couldn't have it, and it was only an hour. You know, but and I'm a hush. I just want to say this, yes, he said hush. Okay, I have to listen to Brother Robert, because when he was on the city council, when we were fighting our battle, Sharice Hurst's dad was on it, first black in the history on the Urbana City Council when we were fighting. And then John Lee Johnson when I was fighting in Champaign. I'm 80 years old and I'm tired, and that's why I'm a hush, because I'm old. But I just want to say this. There was 17 or 18 other sites, but we were the least resistant. They felt they could just bowl over us like they've been doing for years. But then we've had some people who stood with us. People of goodwill know what we're going through. I better sit down, yeah. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. All right, if there's no one else that wants to address the commission, we'll declare the public input portion closed. I'm sorry, actually, I want to give a chance to the petitioner to address any of the comments that have been made, if they want.
Just one thing, thank you. And I respect the speakers who've come before us and expressed their concerns. I just want to make sure there's one clarifying comment. There was reference made to the sale of plots, and at no point has that ever been considered, or will it ever be considered. We are not selling any plots in Hope Village. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll declare the public input portion closed and now go into a discussion and possibly entertain a motion to vote. So is there any discussion of the proposal?
Yes.
Mr. Rose.
I am strongly inclined to suggest a modification, a substantial modification to the project. I'm in favor of the project, and I really appreciated the at least 4 articulate expressions to the effect that we are not against the project. I also favor the project, but with one big modification, and I don't see it as a difficult modification at all. That is the extension of Federal Drive down the east side of the property, turning into where the current parking lot is. Then for the connection to Carver Drive, it strikes me that what would be very welcome would be a pedestrian connection. Bus Route 7 connects Bradley Avenue with OSF, with Carl, with Walmart, with all of the places that I would expect people with cars to take the bus to. So I would definitely not want to close a pedestrian connection there. And I also feel that there's a human side to the interface between these two communities, and we can only do so much. But if that interface is face-to-face and person-to-person, like a pedestrian walkway would be, I think it could be beneficial for both communities. So I appreciate the input, and I suggest a consideration of vehicle access via Federal Drive.
Any other comments for discussion?
I don't know where other people are in 10 o'clock. I agree with Mr. Rose about most of that. At least some people here know where I was on June 22nd meeting, and this is the outcome I feared. We're in a mess. Physical mess and an institutional mess and a procedural mess. There are, I'm a planner. I mean, I'm not just a plan commission member, I'm a planner. There's something called a LULU, which is a locally unwanted land use. there are two predictions, at least, for where Lulu's end up. One is at a jurisdictional boundary. Interesting, this is on a jurisdictional boundary. Adjacent and accessible from the least powerful neighborhood. Interesting. There may be a less powerful neighborhood, but this one institutionally and historically is one of the least powerful neighborhoods. This shouldn't have been located here. We already know from the council vote in the summer that the council's going to put it here. I can think of two ways I would respond. One is to vote against it. The other is, which will do no good. The other is to try to make significant modifications and make it at least less problematic than it currently is. And I'm willing to work at that, but I'm not super happy to do it at 10 o'clock at night.
Ms. Sims?
So I really appreciate, I've been looking towards you, right? I really appreciate your comments, Lou. And I appreciate everyone who has so eloquently expressed their concerns and the reminders about both Urbana's commitment to equity and addressing structural inequality. And I asked the question about what our criteria was in the beginning, and I guess I don't feel like we've gotten a complete answer to the question, and this is maybe what Lou's suggesting, around have we adequately addressed the community's concern as being one of the things that we were asked to consider over the summer. And I hear maybe some of the things being addressed, but maybe, right, this is always the question around content versus process. And I firmly believe, and I don't know how we address this, and so this is a larger conversation around the process of having people feel heard thoroughly in a collaborative way hasn't been addressed. And I don't know where our remedies are, but I also, right, as Lou has described, if you come to somebody, I just think about a matter of if I make a decision and then come back to you and say, tell me what you think about it, it never feels collaborative. And so I don't know how we remedy that, but I do think to me, I couldn't vote affirmatively on this because number 2 just hasn't been addressed in ways that feel like what we said over the summer had to be done in order for us to say, so again, I think it's going to require some intentional revision. And then I'm going to say this with all transparency. I think, and again, I realized it was late when the presentation was made, but, and again, this is, and I've done it, so I, cannot throw stones, but the comment that said, we can kind of go about and do this any way that we want. We don't have to go through this process. Felt like it shut me down to sort of intentionally listen and be involved. And so again, I don't think it was meant in the way that it was received, but those kinds of comments just made it feel like it wasn't collaborative. It felt, and so it's made it very hard for me to want to continue to, you know, approach this in a more open spirit when it feels like that I was sort of our decisions up here were sort of offhandedly dismissed.
So what are our options in terms of continuing this, I guess, until the next meeting?
Somebody could vote to continue it to next meeting.
I'm going to chime in a little bit. I agree with what everything has been said, and that was going to be my proposal, is we can continue this to another meeting and give the applicants an opportunity, if they so choose, to revise their site plan.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
I mean, it's, unfortunately, I have to say it's not our job to, or our purview to, I think even to suggest to them how to fix it, right? It's, I believe they know what the concerns of the community and the commission are, so.
So do we need a motion to continue?
Yes.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
I move to continue
I
the
second.
PUD discussion.
Okay, so there's a motion to continue plan case number 2480 PUD 23 to the next meeting of the Plan Commission.
And may I add to that motion a request that the designers speak to the issue of Federal Drive access?
Sure. Do we need that as an official part of the motion, or just, I think the message has been delivered.
No.
Yeah, the message has
That's
been
letter.
delivered, so.
That's not-
Okay, do we have a second?
I second it.
All right, second by Ms. Sims. Do we need a,
I'm trying to see if we need that in our bylaws, or if it's in our bylaws.
do we need a roll call, or?
I don't think so. I feel like the continuation in a second just automatically continues it, but. All right, let's take a vote just to be safe.
Voice vote?
Sure.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, so that.
So see y'all Thanksgiving? I said, so we'll see y'all on Thanksgiving? No. It'll be the December, I'll have to,
Yeah. Well, we did have another item on the agenda today that would have changed that next meeting, I think, but maybe, I don't think we're going to get to that tonight, possibly.
yeah, no, that's fine. Well, it'll be the first meeting in December.
Clarification for everybody.
December
Me-
7th.
December 7, yeah, me included. The continuation is of the case, not merely the discussion. Yes or no? The distinction
Yeah,
I'm trying to
it's the
make
case.
is, are we going to start again a public hearing with all its elements? Or are we simply continuing the discussion, which was the stage we were at?
Well, I don't think it could be just continuing a discussion if you're expecting to see new evidence presented.
I agree.
Yeah.
I just want to make clear, because it was sort of worded as continuing the discussion. So we are continuing the case with all its elements to the,
Correct.
Yes.
And do we also need to continue the
Yes.
subdivision case, or does
Yeah.
Lou's original
Well,
motion?
oh, because it's tabled. No,
Included
I think
future
we're
meetings,
good.
so it's
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. What else do we need to do? Do we need to have public input still? No?
No.
Okay. Well, officially, I know what our opinion might be, but Okay. Is there a staff report? No, I'm assuming.
So we're deferring an agenda item also. That was sort of side mentioned. I just want to make
Yes.
clear to everybody.
The bylaw discussion?
Yeah, let's defer the bylaws discussion.
That has to be a formal statement, that agenda item is also deferred to the next meeting.
Do we need a motion for that? Okay. Can we get a motion to defer the review of Plan Commission bylaws to
So
the next
moved.
meeting? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Any opposed? All right, so that agenda item will be moved to the December 7th meeting as well. Staff report?
None.
Okay. No study session. With that, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
We've met
I was just going to say.
Every 2 weeks, I think.
I was a faculty member.
This won't go to them, so they won't have anything to discuss. But not until we send it to them. I mean, there's always public input at city council.
And I worked in architecture.
Right, okay.